Hello everybody, Russian Batman here, back with another video, and today this is a little bit of a different one. I'm doing a little drawing. What's the drawing? You've seen the thumbnail. It's Scooby-Doo and Shaggy working for Gustavo Fring, famous, well-known chicken restaurant owner Gustavo Fring. This was actually suggested to me by a good friend of mine. He was like, "Hey, I think he saw my art and he was like, hey, I think it would be pretty haha funny if you did Scooby and Shaggy working for Gustavo Fring." So that is exactly what I did, and it was a little commission. And yeah, so this is me just experimenting how to do the faces. I wanted to do Shaggy kind of squinting, but then I just went with this kind of look instead. Like I said, I try to replicate how Shaggy and Scooby look to the best of my ability. Yeah, and you can see here, I'm pretty happy how they turned out. So this is me doing the sketch. So I did a little bit of sketch off camera just to experiment, just to see how the composition would look. And yeah, then most of the drawing is on camera. But you can see here, Shaggy, and I put some labels on. The reach out of the initial sketch so I could send it to him, see if he liked it, and then work on it further. And he suggested having a Gustavo Fring rolling his sleeves up. And you can see here, like I said, now doing the outlining process, and yeah, kind of outlining each character individually and then outlining everything else, like the background things. And this is one where, you know, for most of my drawings I don't really focus on the background, I focus on the characters, but this one I made sure to focus on the whole piece and make the whole thing just kind of look pretty good. So you can see you got Scooby washing dishes, and you got Shaggy kind of you know, just doing working with the deep fryer. And you see here's Gus's expression I gave him. I end up doing changes in the final. There are a few things that I don't record, which is changing Gus's expression and doing a few tweaks for the background. This is something I suggested when I sent him the final thing. He asked me to change his expression because currently right now he looks just a little bit too curious. He's like, huh, what are these guys doing? When his expression really should be, these guys are just, you know, he should be more like disappointed, if that makes sense, you know, because look at these two, you know, buffoons, and you know, Gustavo being such a proper and well put together person, he would be very, you know, disappointed in people like Shaggy and Scooby. You see here me just doing the background completely on a different layer. I'm making sure I get that right and I make it look good. So here I get started on the deep fryer, and yeah, and like I said, I want to make sure, like I said, you'll see this later when I do the shading, I want to make all the metal look shiny, but I still also kind of want to make it look a little bit cluttered because this is a kitchen, and I do most of the some of the cluttering off camera, and yeah, which is a bit unfortunate. But you see me making the sink and whatnot, trying to make that industrial kind of kitchen sink look, where it has a little hose sink dealioso. Here with the deep fryer, I make some vents on top. I just kind of make up how they look. I did have a little bit of a reference. I did briefly look it up, but for the most part, if you kind of want to make something look, I don't know, good, you just kind of, like for example for this, you just kind of have to add a little bit of greebling and whatnot, and add a little window there because that space felt a little bit vacant. So I had a window so I could add stuff in the future. And here's me putting the actual deep frying things in there, and yeah, so, and he's holding one and there's one off to the side as well. Now onto the coloring. I tried to give Shaggy an appropriately pale skin tone. I gave him his normal red pants, but for his t-shirt and his apron, that's the Gustavo outfit. So yeah, I figured, you know, I don't think the Gustavo outfit really has a color pants. So I just like thought he would come to work in his normal pants, but he would wear his other his shirt would be the, you know, the yellow and the red kind of fast food thing. And here's Scooby off to the side making dishes. I'm really happy how the kind of Scooby expression looks nice and worried, and I want to make it look like they're worried and trying to do their best and whatnot to impress Gus. But Gus, he's clearly just not here. I struggle a little bit with the skin tone, and I land on one that I think looks pretty good, and then boom, I go throughout the entire piece. Here's going out with the same yellow of the other two shirts, to kind of make it all match, like it's all part of the, you know, business uniform. You know, his black tie, you know, the classic just Gustavo Fring look. I'm gonna give him some gray hair with some lighter gray highlights towards the bottom to kind of make it look like he's, you know, kind of give him that aging look. And here I go over his glasses. And then later I tint his glasses, so I go in a separate layer, I do black and whatnot, and then I lower the opacity, give them tinted glasses. Here I'm also working on the coloring for the background, so I just kind of give it some gray gradients. I do end up making the floor a bit more on the brown scale, so I get like a layer of brown just to make it look like it's not all just kind of gray and white and monotonous. So I make the floor a slightly different color, and I was trying to base it off just looking up how, you know, fast food kitchens look. So yeah, just kind of looking up images of that could get inspiration for this, and I ended up, like I said, here's shading, you know, one of my you know, a cool part, and I end up doing, like I said, this piece ends up having lots of layers to it, because like each level of shade is a different layer. The background colors are different. The color for the background things are a different, you know, layer than the color for the characters. So a lot of different layers, which is good because then, you know, when you need to make some modifications, it's pretty easy. You don't have to, you know, trace over stuff, and you could just kind of go to whatever layer you need to modify. Sorry, I'm like knocking over things. I just have little Lego pieces here. But you know, things like that. That's why it's good to keep a lot of the stuff that are separated on separate layers. So here, like I said, going in some more shading, more layers of shading, and yeah. So, like I said, I kind of, you know, I think the shade does look a bit, you know, stark compared to some of that yellow. I think it does look a little bit too like kind of muddied up towards the, you know, some of the darker areas. I maybe I did a little bit too much shading in some areas. I think. Yeah, I think I do end up, like I said, for some pieces, just end up doing like too many layers of shading when it would look good just, you know, kind of as is. But I still really like how it looks and how it turns out. So you see even more kind of shading. I thought we could just do with one more layer. So I think this ended up having 3 layers of shading and then 2 layers of highlight. You're going to see that later when I add the kind of the white with the different opacity. I've heard people use the lighting layer for shading. I don't know what that does. I think it was Pop Cross. He uses a layer called lighting, and I don't know what the difference is between that and just a normal layer. I'm gonna have to look that up. I know there's like different types of layers, but I don't really know what, you know, the difference is. Like I said, I'm gotta look that up, do some research, and maybe I can make my stuff more efficient. And here I go in with shading with the background stuff to kind of make that look good. And yeah, so you see here, it's a bit weird because I end up making the top layer darker than the side layers, which just of the sides of the little kitchen stuff, which doesn't make that much sense, but I still think it looks pretty good. And also, like I said, here's going with the lighting and whatnot and making it kind of, you know, all pop. Also, under Shaggy's arm, I kind of do indicate, like, I do kind of stop the lighting, which I think it should really continue there because, you know, his arm at that angle wouldn't project a shadow there, so I don't know why I did that, but I did. Also give a shout out to the thing. And yeah, you see, so later on I do end up adding like so I make the floor brown and I give it some lines, and also on the side, so you see here lines, and I was really kind of struggling with the perspective of these lines. So you see the other angle, so I do this and it looks bad. So then I take the ruler on one side and then I kind of do these lines off to the side like that, and it's ending soon. So like, subscribe, have a nice rest of the day, and go watch the 2011 Flamengo. You see, I changed some things in the background and added Gustavo Fring kind of logo, little Los Poros Hermanos logos, and yeah, you see here, boom. Have a nice one. See you. Ciao. Bye bye.